Hello and welcome back to another video. We have the March ScrawlrBox today. It's just been delivered through the post box. If you do not know what ScrawlrBox is, it is a monthly art subscription box where you pay a fee and you receive a box of mysterious art supplies. You also receive a featured piece of artwork from the featured artist for this month, a Scrawlr zine that tells you a little bit about the supplies in the box as well as the artist and some hints and tips on how to use them, and you get a lovely little sweet, which is always a nice surprise, and a sticker. So let's get straight into this box and see what we have this month. Feels like quite a light box this month, so I'm interested to see what we have. So let's put that to one side. Let's have a look at the featured artwork straight off the bat. So wow, a really, really beautiful piece of artwork here. Very nice, a lot of colour, a lot of shadowing and light on here, so we can potentially play with that. I'm not sure what medium it is, to be honest. It could be markers, it could be watercolours, it could be anything. Very, very nice. So this is the featured artist, an Australian. I don't know why I went into an Australian accent there. Well, a terrible Australian accent. An Australian fine artist and illustrator. Her artwork spans many mediums and themes, but at its heart, Kat's work aims to tell a story. Very lovely, and her socials are just at the bottom there. Very nice. We'll leave the Scrawlr zine till last. So we have some Bristol board here, which tells me it will be markers. Oh, this soft touch. I love these soft touches they put on the front of some of these pads. Very nice. So yes, some lovely Bristol board. I'm familiar with Bristol board. I've used it in the past for my alcohol markers, so that's why I'm thinking that's what we have. Let's have a look at the package. Oh, we have a sour sweet. I've spotted it. After what I said last month about sour sweets, I'm excited about this. So we have a refresher sour apple flavour. So I'll pop up on the screen what my rating out of 10 is for sourness and how nice the sweet is itself. Then, okay, firstly, oh, we have Copics. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I know for a fact if they sell these boxes, oh, they're not doing the selling boxes. We recently received an email saying that they're stopping to selling their old boxes. I wonder why they're doing that. Anyway, back onto the matter at hand. We have some Copic Chow markers. So we have a couple of colours here. Does it tell you? Oh yeah, Spectrum Green. We have Mallow and Brick Beige. What a strange selection of colours, but also they work really beautifully together. I love a green-purple combo. It is very nice. So we have the chisel tip on these chows as well as that lovely sought-after brush nib. So very nice. Very, very nice. Not quite the colours on here, but I guess we could layer up and maybe darken that purple a little bit to achieve those darker shades. Very nice. Okay. We have the Scrawlr sticker, which I've skipped over, which is a snippet of that featured artwork. Lovely. Add that to the collection. Then we have the Staedtler 308 pigment liner, black in 0.8 size. I am a massive advocate for the pigment liners by Staedtler. They're my favourite. They're waterproof. They don't run, well, they never have for me anyway, underneath the alcohol markers. So that will be very nice to try. And we also have the Derwent sketching pencil in 2H. 2H, that is an odd choice for a sketching pencil, I feel. I'm much more of a 2B fan myself, so interesting to see whether we can rub that out. We haven't got the usual rubber or anything like that, but that is it. And then a little bit about the pad. So this is by Art Gecko again. So we've received a square format pad like this before by Art Gecko. So it's just a square 10 sheet pad of 250 GSM white Bristol board. So very nice. And then our Scrawlr challenge is feminine energy. Okay, so we've recently had International Women's Day, so it's a nice fitting theme for this month, I feel. So we will have a look at that. And lastly, let's have a flick through this Scrawlr zine. So this is a bit more about the supplies. We have some more on Katrina Young, the featured artist. Oh, some of this work is beautiful. Look at the hair detail on that. Fantastic. Then we have some Scrawlr tips and things to try, which again, as usual, I will read whilst we swatch the supplies. We have the artist's advice as well. Then we have the Scrawlr gallery. So this is the featured artwork from 2 months prior to this box when we had Dish of the Day. This was the pencils and the recycled ballpoint pen, which was a really odd choice. And I think I really struggled with this, and I did a couple of pieces and I actually have been featured. I've just noticed at the bottom here. Oh, amazing. So featured in this one again. This is the Concertina sketchbook, and I think a lot of people kind of maybe didn't use the Concertina sketchbook because it was quite difficult to come up with a theme for that, but oh great. So yeah, there's some lovely artwork on that. Oh, I'm glad I've been featured considering I struggled with that one so much. Very nice. So yeah, if you want to be featured, just tag Scrawlr challenge in your art pieces and you will be entered into their choosing of their pieces. And like I say, this is from 2 months prior to this box, so there is plenty of time for overseas box purchases to enter this, which is very good. And then lastly we have the Scrawlr top 3, not lastly because there's another page I've just realised. So these are the 3 artists that got chosen for the top 3 featured artworks. Very good. Oh, I like this one, that's very interesting, something a bit different there. Very good, very good. And then lastly we have the Scrawlr extra, which is icons and eyebrows. So this is about Frida Kahlo. So we all know or heard about her, I'm sure. Some more about her. She's a very iconic woman. So that fits the theme. Very good. So very nice supplies. Very, very nice. Copics are very expensive, so this is a very worthwhile box. Absolutely. So let's get on with some swatching. I'll read those Scrawlr tips and things to try, and then we will attempt to create a piece of artwork based on feminine energy. For the Scrawlr tips, we have a couple. So get swatching, get to know the colour, bleed ratio and drying time of your Copics. Create depth, add layers of the same marker to darken the opacity. This can be used for shading and shadows. Blend it out. Copics are known for being super blendable. A couple of tips on blending. For best results, work fast whilst the ink is wet. Lighter shades will move the pigment of darker shades, so it's best to use the lighter to blend with. Lay your light down first, then overlap your darker shade using smaller circular motions. Use the lighter marker to smooth out the darker shade. You can also experiment by touching the nibs together for a few seconds and then laying your colour down. Things to try. For smoother brushstroke transitions, use the brush-ended tip of the pen and slightly lift with each stroke. Applying a medium pressure as you work, flick your wrist away from you as you work to feather the colour out. Prevent uneven areas of colouring in dark sections by keeping the nib on the page and avoid overlapping where you have just coloured. Work slowly for the smoothest results. Work from light to dark and leave areas uncoloured for bright highlights. It's worth noting that Copics will continue to bleed out into each other until dry, so what you see when it's wet won't be what you are left with. This will also vary depending on what paper you use. There are simple tests you can do before you start. Draw a shape with your pencil and colour it in, let it dry. Once dry, you will see how far out the ink will bleed. So there's a few other tips like creating new tints, which, you know, obviously if you blend colours together you will create more, and there's a few tips from the artist as well saying that you can actually use your lighter colour and saturate the paper where you may have perhaps used a darker colour that you don't want to be there, and by saturating the paper you will hopefully fade out that dark colour and be able to go over the top. And also feather blending, just flick your marker to one side and then flick another colour into that marker and you will blend that way as well. So some really good hints and tips there. And from just swatching the markers, they do blend fairly well on this lovely Bristol board. The Bristol board is very known for being well to use with alcohol markers, and alcohol markers themselves are just a really nice nice medium to use if you want to blend, because you can saturate the paper and you can pull up colour much like you maybe would with watercolours, say. So it's a very nice medium to use. Now, I know I said that I love the Staedtler markers and they are alcohol proof, but I kept going over mine and smudging them. So if you are going to use it, I think maybe let them dry for 24 hours, because it seems like a quick dry is not going to cut it. So just be really mindful of that, and maybe perhaps switch the way you're going to use the liner and maybe use it on top. So into the artwork itself. So for this, I did kind of want to lean into my strengths by doing an animal, but I thought, let's push ourselves a little bit, let's not be too easy on ourselves. And so I did this woman, and I wanted her to hold a bird of prey. I thought the colours lended itself well to this much better, and I laid down this flat colour of that more skin tone. And then what's the beauty of alcohol markers is you can layer them up, and the more you layer them over itself, over the same colour, the darker that colour will become. So with one marker I have managed to shade and add shadowing and light to the figure that I've drawn here, and it's just a really beautiful way of using the alcohol markers, and that's why I really always have loved them. And Copics in particular, they have such a great pigment in them. They do surpass quite a lot of alcohol markers out there. And then I thought I would use the green for her dress, but I didn't want it to be such a bright green that we had, so I muted it down with that same skin tone. I just layered that over the top and mixed it together, and it created this really nice muted colour, and it also allowed me to bring some lighter areas and shadowing areas too. And then I did actually use the tip that I just read, where you actually put one nib of colour to the other pen of colour, and I kind of saturated the skin tone with the purple colour, and it created this nice kind of muted brown shade, which I then used to shadow the dress, and I used it on the hair as well. It just worked out as a really nice colour for doing that, and likewise it kind of muted down the lip colour too, which was very, very nice. The one thing I think that I noticed with these pens was just the muddiness. If you're not careful, they can create a bit of muddy look to them, especially if you do accidentally smudge the Staedtler pigment liner, which you will see and I will talk about very shortly. Now, as I come on to colouring in this bird of prey, the same technique with mixing the skin tone and that purpley colour to create this more muted brown worked really, really well on this. I was able to lay down quite a lot of flat colour and leave a few areas slightly white just to show that kind of white fur or highlights, and that worked really well. Like the tips and hints say, the colour will bleed a little bit, which is actually very nice, because if you leave a white section it will slowly bleed into that but also fade into it, so you don't have a stark line that say you would with paint, and that is a really nice effect if you can utilise it. I then added in a touch of green. I just think it was a bit fitting. It kind of reflected the dress colour. Everything has got that same muted skin tone with that hint of green and hint of purple in there, and I think just bringing those two colours together really, really made this and tied it all together and made it all look really cohesive. to the inking. So I did cheat here a little bit. That Staedtler liner was a 0.8 in size and it was absolutely massive. The paper they've given us is such a small scale that doing anything with that liner would just, it would be very bold and very noticeable. And I mean, I think that's okay if you're doing some sort of graphic work or some very bold lining, but for what I wanted it for, this more subtle line work, it was just going to be too big. So I did whip out my own selection of Staedtler liners and just chose a much smaller size. It's the same supplies, just a very smaller nib, so I don't feel like it's cheating too much, so I do apologise if you think I'm cheating, but it was just the only way to get the effect that I wanted on my artwork. So I went ahead and I started to ink this. I wasn't going to ink any of it because I quite like the look of it, but I wasn't getting that contrast that you would get by having multiple shades of the same colour. You can get the, like I mentioned, you can get the shadowing and the highlights by layering the same colour over itself, which is great, but after a while you just don't get that contrast that you would want from multiple pens of the same colour, if you catch my drift. So I did go ahead and line it all up, and I think the end product has worked out really nicely. I think I managed to get quite a lot of shading in there, and it kind of finishes it off quite nicely actually. So I'm really pleased with this, and I hope you've enjoyed watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.